Good afternoon, everybody. This is my build of the AMT 1963 Ford Galaxie 500 XL. This has gone through a number of changes. Originally, it was I was going to leave it just pure racing green, and then I decided to use the decals that were in the kit because it seemed kind of a waste to not use them. So the color palette is a little different. Some might like it, some might not, but here it is. So I originally, after putting decals on, I had these dummy pipes that are in the kit as well. And it still wasn't blending together, so I decided to use the chrome that's in the kit. And I had to clean it up along the top, sand it, then paint it silver. And then I just created a wash using Tamiya sky blue and then Tamiya thinner, and it seemed to work quite well. And growing up, I used to see a lot of these cars back in the day. My brother's friends had them. My brother had a 64 Mercury Marauder 4-door when I was a kid with a rear slider on the back. That was a interesting car. The rear window slid. I can't remember if it was a Marauder or Park Lane, but it had the rear slider on the back. It was a 64 anyway. And then he had a 59 Oldsmobile, 59 Chevy Bel Air 4-door, almost identical to the one in the Kevin Costner movie, A Perfect World. His car is practically identical to that. And then he had a Rambler. So I rode in cars like this when I was a kid. Little brother, get in the car and away I'd go with the big brother. And ever since I was a kid, I've just been fascinated with cars. I was probably in diapers at the time. As far back as I could remember, I used to walk around the cars and look at the chrome. And I've just always been fascinated with automotive design of this era in particular. And so yeah, I was going to leave it racing green, reminiscent of the cars that, I saw growing up. Because as a kid growing up, I never really saw cars done up to this level with fancy trim and stuff. I mean, I grew up in Canada, so in the north central part of Canada. So didn't really see a lot of cars with this kind of paint jobs on them with the trim and everything. Cars I saw were pretty basic. You'd have the mag wheels. Guys would put side pipes on them and so forth. So that was the look I was originally aiming for. But, I just had to change it around, make it look a little bit more interesting. I describe my builds as kind of like almost bordering on Hot Wheels cars, because I like to try different things, make them look different. And so I like the look of the actual cars, but then I like to experiment as well. So a lot of times my model builds will sit in the case for even a year or longer, and I'll look at it and I'll think it's done and I'll post it on here, and a year later I'll look at it again, take it down and start experimenting with them, seeing what kind of look I can get out of them. And that's the thing with models as opposed to real cars. Real cars are the 1-1 cars. I mean, you look at them and I don't know, just from a different perspective. Whereas with a model car, kind of want it to catch the eye a little bit. And again, some might like this look, others might not, but to each their own. It's our hobby, we buy these things, build them the way we want them. And for me, it's the nostalgia of the actual cars, but also the nostalgia of model building. You know, think back when you're 12, 13, you didn't have quite have the skills that you have now to build these things the way you want them. Add to that, we got better quality materials. Like I use the most basic materials, and even with the most basic materials, they're far advanced from when I left the hobby back in the 90s. So, you know, with time, that's all it takes is time to get a decent looking model. You know, you can buy aftermarket parts and stick them on your model, but it's my opinion is you got to learn to walk before you can run, because you know you get the basics down, and then when you want to advance into the other stuff, then you're not leaning on the tech parts. You know, you get your build straight, you get your build clean, be able to get all that done, and then go to the other stuff like the 3D parts and stuff. You know, if you so desire, or if you can afford it. Personally, myself, I can't afford it. And plus, I don't have the workspace. Well, my workspace is right here. I gotta paint these things outside, so I'm limited with what I can do. But to paint the trim, I painted all the trim by hand with a fine brush. And it took me about 8 hours to paint that, all the trim, go around the car. And since I was a kid, it's just something I enjoyed doing. And it's challenging. I don't mask any of this stuff off when I paint the trim, nothing. Because what happens if you try to mask it off, you start leaning on the tape, and then you start getting silver paint where you don't want it. So you don't want to lean on the tape. You want to take your time and get it right, steady hand. And then put decals on too. It took me about 7 hours to get those decals on there, to lay them down nice and clean like that. And I used, to me, a decal solution for that. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. You know, the 60s style, they used to paint the brake drums red, and then with the red line tires, it looked pretty good. Like, it looked cool, just plain green. But again, when I looked at those decals, I kept looking at them, and I'm thinking, I gotta use them. And originally, I thought that where they're open there, like right there. See, I thought that was, for some reason, when I got the model, I thought that there was clear decal on there, and that's part of the reason why I didn't use them. And so I just went with the green, you know. And then I started looking at decals a little closer, and I realized, oh, they're actually a really nice decal. And I had no issues with them tearing or anything like that. You know, take your time. I used kind of a medium, not warm, but kind of in between cold and warm water. And with the climate up here, so, because I'm in north central Canada, so. Yeah, and then decal solution and Q-tips, and yeah, took about 7 hours to lay those down. But yeah, I'm pleased with it. I like the looks that I achieved with it. And so yeah, I call this one done. And thank you for viewing. Thank you for subscribing. And you know, I'll try to get some more builds up, and I try to keep it interesting the best way I can. And with time constraints, work, all that stuff, you know, can be a challenge at times. But again, thanks for viewing, thanks for subscribing, and hopefully I'll get a few more builds up soon. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.